One of the things that I think that we can change in medicine and science is coming up with very typical frameworks or ideal conceptualizations of things. I know it's really easy to do these things where we come up with some sort of typology that fits something. And I think a lot of medicine, for example, and a lot of biological sciences tend to do that in the sense that when we are teaching undergraduates or, even medical students and whatnot, it's really easy to show some sort of typology of how something works or what it actually looks at, or what it actually looks like. And so what a typology is, and what I'm talking about, is some sort of categorization with very distinct boundaries between where that thing exists and when it doesn't exist. So I'm thinking about typologies of neurodiversity, for example. That's the thing that's on the top of my mind. Like whether you have ADHD or don't have ADHD, or you have autism or don't have autism. But in reality, it's very much a spectrum, or it's very much a blend of how your body thinks or how your brain works. And I think that's where we need to go and to teach about. And I think a lot of new science is definitely going there, of telling people that there is this sort of diversity and that things are just not as black and white and clear as we think they are. And what we need to do is, so this is my own personal view, is we need to really start teaching about a probabilistic nature of the world very early on, and have that built into how we understand science in general. And I think that's a bit of a fault of how we do science and think about science. For example, what I'm thinking about is in terms of teaching people about different thought, like different ideas. In geology, for example, there might be very distinct layers between whether, this is the Earth's crust versus the Earth's core, and very distinct sort of moments where that might happen. But in reality, it doesn't quite happen that way. It's actually a little less of a distinct change, and there might be gradual changes. There might be moments where there is very distinct changes between the different layers on Earth, but it doesn't quite work that way. And that's where I'm thinking about, is teaching a probabilistic way of doing science, where we particularly with the social sciences, is that things happen by chance, and we understand whether things happen not concretely in any sort of way. It is a probabilistic, it's a probability that something might happen, such that if you were to grab 30 things, 30 of the same objects, 50% of those things are not going to be quite the same. It's the same as the human body. If you get 30 people together, we will have, in general, some sort of normal height. Maybe it's 5'8" is what the normal human height is, but there's going to be people that vary much more. Some people might be 6'2", and other people might be 5'1", and we have to sort of be very careful about that in terms of thinking of these typologies or categories in how we think about the world. And we have to be very cognizant to teach this a lot more in science, so that people are aware of that and know that it's not as clear-cut as what we think it is. And as a consequence, we have to be careful in how we make inferences of these various different things, and know where something ends and something doesn't end is not as clear cut. And I think that's a really good lesson. I know it's hard to teach that, and most of the time it's just taught within math, for example. But in reality, it's the whole world, or it's everything, right? It's the entire domain of science and education. And we need to be a lot more cognizant of that so that we come up with better inferences, and other people are aware that things are not as clear cut. But at the same time, being careful that science is, and scientific knowledge is very rigorous in a lot of ways, right? I think that's right now the conversation, or at least a part of the people that sort of are, railing or, contradicting science is they're using the sort of the sort of loose natures of science against it, and saying that it's completely false, and there's really no sort of scientific understanding, and all these categories are all just a bunch of hogwash and stuff. But making sure that and part of the reason why I think we're getting there at this moment is simply because we lack this probabilistic education, and it should be very deeply ingrained within education, so we know how to think about things in this world. So that's where I'm thinking at this moment. Hopefully you got something from it. Leave me a comment in the podcast if you do like this. I do appreciate it. So with that, have a good day, and we will see you on the next one.